Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Typewriter Talks. This is episode 33, and I'm Maureen McDowell, the founder and executive director of Keep St. Pete Lit. And this is an online series where we interview local Tampa Bay authors and get inside their head and their writing process. And today I have my dear friend, Barbara Riddle, who is a writer and teacher. And thank you for being here.
My pleasure, Maureen. It's ever since I met you at the Flamingo Bar and Grill, the week you started Keep St. Pete Lit, I knew you were someone to watch.
Oh my God, I love that.
You were handing out little tags that said Keep St. Pete Lit on string.
Yeah.
And I thought, little bookmarks, and your spirit was so great. That was 12 years ago, 13, 14, yeah.
Yeah, Margaret Murray came up with that. She actually had the name of Keep St. Pete Lit that she gave to us, and she really went all out for that event. And I had no idea that I would be here 7.5 years later.
It's amazing.
The journey that we've been on, and I feel like every year we're just getting started.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have followed you faithfully for 7 years.
Oh, yes, you have. And through the Mirror Lake Library, we've known each other. And so tell us what you're working on right now.
Okay, well, it's been a year of incredible challenges and endings and beginnings. I'm working on a fish out of water novel about a woman who moves to Maine to start a new life. And that parallels something that I'm doing. She's not me, but I'm drawing on my experiences the pandemic was like, oh, let's add something else difficult to starting a new life in a state you've never lived in where you don't know anybody. Let's add a pandemic where you can't meet anybody.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so actually that has enriched what I'm working on. But what I wanted to say was I applied to Writers in Paradise last December, whatever. I got into the workshop in January with John Dufresne, the flash fiction workshop.
Oh, great.
I'd never really done before because I thought, I'm a novelist. It was fantastic. It was so fantastic. And I met people there that I've kept in touch with since last January.
Yeah, that's great.
And two incredible things have come out of that. A woman there who was the editor-in-chief of a journal called Please See Me, which is about how medical care can be improved by better communication from caregivers and patients. They use fiction and nonfiction, which is something really close to my heart because it's something I did years ago.
Yeah.
She reached out and said, I need a fiction editor, a guest fiction editor. And I said, what the hell? I'm in Maine. I'm unemployed right now. I've got time. So I reached out, and now I'm the guest fiction editor of this journal, which I love. And it gives me structure. And I'd like editing, and it's got time-defined tasks. So that kept me very busy. People ask me, what did you do with all your time? And I said, are you kidding me? I've never been so busy,
Yeah.
So that's a volunteer right now because they have no money, but they will maybe be getting money. I may be helping them get some grants. And then a woman named Juliana Blackwell, also from that seminar, is an editor and a mentor to people, and she is constantly sending out notices about contests and journals to submit to. And I said, I'm going to change my mode. I'm going to try more short fiction, and creative nonfiction as well. So I've gotten, because writing a novel, which is almost certainly not going to get published, but might, takes 5 to 7 years for me, of a lot of solitary time, and to have short-term goals is fantastic. So I've really pushed myself this year. It was kind of a, why not? I'm going to try as many new things as I can. Who cares? I may fail at half of them. You know. And part of that was I had breast cancer a year and a half ago, tiny, tiny lump. They got it out. It's all fine. They're following it. But you know what? All the cliches are true. I said, it's unlikely that it'll come back, but life is short. And that did set a fire under me. So between the short fiction, a lot of which is about growing up in the village in New York, short pieces that have kind of punchy, ends to them, because I had a weird, in a way similar, I'm like the New York version of your life. I had bohemian parents who weren't incredibly organized, but lots of stories from it.
Yes, that sounds about right.
Yeah, and luckily your mother's still alive. You're lucky for that.
Both
But
of them
so
are. So
I have an infinity of material, and short pieces are maybe the best way for me to handle it because it's a little bit overwhelming. Like, am I completely fucked up, or did it make me really creative, or
I'm probably a little both. I'm speaking for myself. Yeah. I'm speaking for myself. Yeah.
And I sublet my place while I was away in Maine because the first time I went, it was just spring break. I'd arranged to buy this fixer-upper before COVID. I just thought I need a place in the future during the summers when it's so hot here. And I closed a week before lockdown.
Oh my gosh. And tell about the story. Like you looked up small towns that you could
2 years ago, I Googled houses for sale under $50,000.
Yeah.
A lot of things came up in the Midwest and so on. And this town came up, Millinocket in Maine. And I followed my nose. And it was on hard times because the mill shut down. It had been a mill town, very, very prosperous at one time. Beautiful old houses. Maureen, houses were for sale for $30,000. Two-story houses, a few blocks from downtown. And it reminded me of St. Pete, like divide St. Pete by 100, the atmosphere and the size. There were like one pizza place, one donut shop, a medical marijuana clinic, and a diner and a post office. That's it.
Sounds like the best place to go and write, like to get away. And
my gosh.
Yeah.
But here's the killer thing. I went 3 times because I kept getting outbid. I refinanced my condo. I had no money. This is how to do something when you have no money. I had good credit and no money, okay? I refinanced my condo for the down payment. There are tenants on the first floor because it's a beautiful old house that was divided into 2 units. I couldn't do it without that. I went 3 times and I got outbid twice with all cash offers. And the third time, the woman who runs the art gallery there said, I have a friend who may be selling his place. It was right opposite the library, which they had just renovated. I still can't believe it happened. So I went there in March thinking I'll do a little fix up, find out who's good, and then come back to my job. Then the lockdown started. My school shut down. So I worked online. I didn't have my computer because I wasn't expecting to be working. I learned how to edit in Dropbox, Microsoft Word in Dropbox on my phone. And I worked with students on my phone from Maine.
Oh my goodness.
I know, not even Zoom, So then the lockdown extended here. So I extended my stay in Maine. And I got to know people a little bit. And there was one building I kept walking by that was a small brickish building, empty storefront. It said for rent or for sale. And I said, that looks like it could be a little movie theater and the town could use that. I said, what the heck? So I called the owner. He said, well, how much would you offer? I said, well, I have to talk to some people. What are you asking? He wouldn't tell me anything. So nothing happened. And then I had to come back. So I came back in May, June. When I went back, the building was sold. And guess what was in the window?
A movie theater.
Boreal Theater, a sign, hand-printed sign.
How cool.
So I found out who bought it. It turns out he's a retired physician in Millinocket who also bought an old house for a women's shelter. Guess what he wants to do with it? A community theater and movie theater. And he's already got someone who wants to do a little Italian cafe. So I'm in touch with him now. It's about the size of Greenlight Theater in downtown St. Pete, small. Right at the corner where the town begins, and it's got a big small park right next to it that the town bought for $1, which they can use for the cafe. So 3 weeks ago, Randy, who's the guy doing all this, said, would you want to be on the board? And I said, oh my God, yes, of course.
So it's like you're going to be a part of this.
Yeah. So my lifetime dream to be involved and maybe programming for, and I'm a real movie nut. I went 3 times a week to AMC. I had that, monthly membership. So Maureen, I'm just saying, now is the time.
Maureen.
Visualize what you want and get as far as you can towards it. So right now, I'm still waiting to see if I can get my old teaching job back because I love working with the ESOL students and the immigrants. I didn't feel safe. I had resigned in June just because all over the world. Who knows
Yeah.
what precautions, and I'm in the age bracket where I should be careful.
Yeah.
But I do miss them a lot, working with the students. One of my favorite students was a Cuban doctor who was driving Uber while he was waiting to see how to get back into some kind of medical thing. And one of the questions I have to ask is, what are your strengths? When they come see me, I help them get jobs. And he said, I am an enthusiast.
That sounds like you.
Yeah.
Sounds like us both.
I'm searching for the right word, like fuzzy-brained optimist, but enthusiast.
I like that.
And he had no hesitation. And that defines the whole spirit of working with those people who come with nothing and are willing to do anything for something that we don't even think twice about.
Yeah.
So, but if I don't get my job back, I think it's pretty likely I have to figure out what to do. And I don't live well with uncertainty, but we all have to do that right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
it's interesting times for sure.
And I don't know about you, but everybody I've talked to is feeling the body effect of the current administration. I'm not even going to say the name, leaving.
Voldemort.
Our bodies are changing. We're breathing more deeply. It's been 4 years of absolute hell, and I haven't suffered nearly what many Americans have, but we've been clenched and in a state of rage, and we're just figuring out who we are and what to do now.
Yeah. 2021 is going to be a really interesting year. I feel very optimistic. I do too. I feel grateful that everyone I love is healthy. And I've had friends that have had scares, breast cancer scares and other things. And, I love this city. I'm excited. I know a lot of people are struggling. I hope that we're at the tail end. Pantone picks colors every year, and they pick like this kind of grayish color and then this bright yellow, kind of the idea of like the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And I just try to keeping that thought in mind that like, this is the last, like the last little bit.
Yeah. I mean, the new people are not going to go away. The incredible cabinet that Biden's, assembling. I mean, I was a Sanders person, but I think Biden is actually the right person for right now in terms of reaching across the aisle and kind of bland. He can go either way. That's fine. Just make it work.
Yeah, we just want a system that works.
Get people out of trouble, and then we'll tweak it. I mean, he's changed also. I think since the primaries, I think he's a lot more open, and I'm very optimistic. I really am, and I've been doing a lot more. Well, I did a lot of reading from Maine authors. While I was in Maine, I wanted to really immerse myself. Edna St. Vincent Millay.
Yeah. I read her
about. What a genius! I mean, not just her poetry, but she spoke languages and Latin, and she was a pianist and a farmer, even. So I was reading her letters, and Monica Wood, who was a wonderful Maine writer, she wrote a book called "When We Were the Kennedys" about growing up in a small town in Maine. And that's a beautiful memoir. And of course, Elizabeth Strout and E.B. White has always been one of my favorites. And I found all these connections to Maine, even the thrift store where I would buy things for 50 cents sometimes just to see. I read a novel that was set in the 30s, and probably the reason someone bought it was the dead wife of the main character was from Maine. It was set in Spain and it was made into a movie later, but the dead wife was from Maine. So Maine seems to be like a touch point for a certain state of mind or a dream. It's kind of a dream.
Yeah, but you need to. I have a friend, one of our students, Mary Chris Bailey. She lives in Maine.
Yes, yes. I actually.
She's there now. She's still.
Yes, I zoomed with her.
Yeah,
she's part of Juliana's group, and we're actually going to try to continue our group. Yeah, Julia, and
I think Juliana passed away, didn't she?
Juliana
Blackwell?
No.
Okay, there was another Juliana that passed away. One of our students.
I think that was probably Jerry's wife. Jerry Connolly was married to a Julia. Yeah, and Jerry was part of our group. We zoomed on Thanksgiving or something close to Thanksgiving. And I was the only one who wasn't drinking. And it went on for about 2 hours. And I realized it's really, you got to drink when other people are drinking, because.
Oh yeah, there's a point where they're
yeah, some of the humor, but no, she's great.
She's a wonderful writer. I'm going to
yeah.
interview her for Typewriter Talks too. She's in Maine and here, and she's still.
She might even be listening in, right? I don't know if people
She'll
can listen
probably
in,
watch
right?
this.
Yeah,
I like that idea of moving to a new place and immersing yourself in their local writers. I think that's a really wonderful idea.
Yeah, and
it's really neat.
Would you believe? Maybe it's because I like the writer and there's something about them that made them connect to Maine, but Alexander Chee is a wonderful writer. I just bought his book called How to Write an Autobiographical Novel. I have it here. I'm giving him a plug.
Neat.
He studied with Annie Dillard at Wesleyan, and I like autobiographical books. So I bought this. It's a wonderful book. Guess where he was from? Maine. Would you believe it?
You're attracting all the Maynards. Are they called Maynards? Is that right?
Yes, Maynards. And he was bullied for being, he's part, Asian, and he was bullied in his school. But, he writes about that. And then he's gay. He moved to San Francisco. But he's a wonderful writer. And I thought, I can't believe this. I never thought there was a Maine connection, So now that's kind of my little game, is find the Maine connection.
I like the idea of writing a longer book but doing these shorter pieces too. It kind of keeps you fresh. It keeps you, like, you can set aside this, one thing and then work on another. And then
I'm doing two things. I'm cannibalizing I've written 2 novels. One is published, The Girl Pretending to Read Rilke, plug. The other I'm sending around. It's called Too Many Countries, and it's what they call autofiction. It is autobiographical. I don't know why we can't just use the word autobiographical, but anyway, the current trendy term is autofiction, at least in writing workshops.
Okay.
Which I was privileged to be sort of a witness to the immediate aftermath of the Velvet Revolution in the Czech Republic. We went 6 months after the change of power, and I saw what happened over 5 years because I was married to a Czech emigre. And I just felt I needed to write about some of that. So that novel deals with an emigre trying to fit into America and not making it. My ex-husband, just could not make the transition.
Yeah.
And I finally wrote from a place of compassion. It was very difficult for me because I wanted him to be happy and I couldn't make it happen.
Yeah.
And he wound up going back to Prague. But I did have an incredible bird's eye view of that country and that process, different from a lot of the novels by younger men and women who went there in the 90s and drank a lot and screwed everybody and ate cheap food. And this was very different because my ex would visit his former classmates who had been garbage men and fired from their university jobs and so on. And they weren't that thrilled to see him. He had left. He was now an American citizen. They had stayed and suffered. He saw them as sort of almost collaborators. Like, how could you stay with these fucking communists? And they saw him as someone who left, who abandoned them.
So he didn't belong in America, and then he didn't belong there.
He didn't belong anywhere. And that's why the book is called Too Many Countries.
Oh, wow. And you deal with your students like that too, that in the transition.
Exactly. And and it turns out that's something I'm super interested in because growing up in New York City, my parents were both from the Midwest. So I wasn't your typical, I wasn't Jewish, I wasn't the New York intellectual. I grew up, there was no religion. It was complete openness to anybody. Nobody.
And the Midwest is very different than the East.
But at the same time, I didn't really fit in anywhere because at one point I didn't know when we would talk about politics or class, or I wasn't middle class for sure because we lived sometimes in hotels, and I wasn't lower class or working class because my parents were both very educated. So I didn't know what class I was. I would have said déclassé now, or bohemian.
You're an artist. You were obviously an artist, so bohemian. You fit.
Well, for that and when I was a kid, you couldn't say to your 9-year-old friend. So at one point, I have an older brother and sister, and they were both in St. Pete visiting me a few years ago. And I said, Steve, what class were we? I don't know. And he said, upper poor, upper poor. And that kind of fit it, because
I might feel that way too, growing
we
up.
would get clothes from the Salvation Army.
Yeah.
But my mother would get a sheared lamb coat, and she could carry it off because she was gorgeous. She was beautiful. Yeah. But it would be a used fur coat with a few moth holes, and she made her own hats. So,
that's I like the upper poor. We had the restaurant and the marina in Johns Pass. So I felt rich because we had that property.
Yeah.
And people looked at us like fisherman royalty, but like we had a hole in our floorboard of our car. We were in thrift store clothes.
Right. But you kind of owned the land in a way.
Yeah. My whole family does that.
Yeah.
So that went before. I get that.
Yeah. When I went back to New York, I lived in San Francisco for 25 years. I never adjusted to it, really. There were many good things about it. I raised my daughter there. It was affordable compared to New York, but I had to get back to New York. When I got back, the Village, which we had only been renters in, was now, condos and lawyers. But I would look at them on the street and I would say, you don't belong here. This is my place. I own this. And I was never intimidated by them. I couldn't afford it.
Like that in St. Pete. This is my city. This is my.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I just came back from Key West, and when we were crossing over the Skyway Bridge, when we got into like our neck of the woods, St. Pete, it's like whatever my frequency is, it's the same as this area. Like, it's like I feel centered and grounded in myself. And I even lived in Asheville, North Carolina for 8 years, and I would come home and there was just this feeling, and maybe it's because we're surrounded by water. There's just something so special about Pinellas County.
Yeah.
And especially St. Pete and the beaches. Like, it's where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
I live elsewhere, like do what you do, but
I've moved since I can no longer afford New York. If someone from the sky said, Barbara, you can live anywhere, where would you like to be? I'd probably live in a studio in the West Village, because you can walk everywhere in the But now that you can stream movies, that used to be my thing. All the 5 international movie houses, I can see any movie I want.
Kino Now. Do you know about Kino Now?
Yeah. And Criterion and all those.
Yeah, all the movies.
So now what happened to me in New York is I would be walking down a street and I would be gripped by this nostalgia. And I thought, oh my God, I put my foot on this exact corner when I was 11, and I fell in love with that boy who wouldn't even look at me. And then my mother had this, and I couldn't stay in the present. I was like, I was being thrashed back and forth. So I realized it was pleasure, pain, pleasure, pain, pleasure, pain.
Yeah.
In Millinocket, I'm in the now. I have no past memories. And that is an incredible pleasure. And maybe if I was a Zen monk or I meditated more, I could, do it in New York. Yeah. And St. Pete is somewhere in between for me. But the pleasure of being someplace where you have no memories, but you like where you are, it's amazing. It's really amazing.
I feel that way when I go to Johns Pass and Madeira Beach and the beaches. I have that pleasure pain because we basically grew up in those areas. But downtown St. Pete was not what it is now. Like, I would come downtown to go to like Janus Landing or Club Detroit and Bayfront Center, which is now it's been torn down, but it's where the Mahaffey is, and go to punk rock shows. But you didn't hang out in St. Pete. So I don't have that feeling here of pleasure pain. I feel like I help create with Keep St. Pete Lit and being part of the art scene, this new reality. So
yes, you have.
It's, many of us have. It's not just me, but I feel more like I was a co-creator in the city now than the pleasure pain.
Do you feel any resentment for the changes?
I think it's part of me. I do walk around and go, we built these condos, the art community, and there's many other factors. We've had discussions about this, that I think that the city needs to up its ante for the art community, because and even like the tourism, because they use what we've created to bring people here and get people to be in these condos, but the amount of money that comes into the art community does not equal the amount that they are getting out of it. And I'm very vocal about that in meetings with that we've had in discussions, and
plus the
it's not
affordability, the housing
and
affordability.
and the housing, and there, we hopefully that there are people that you have to get the private sector involved,
Yep.
like the private sector.
Shouldn't there be mandatory taxes on new construction that go to the arts and things like that?
The thing that I think that happened in this city is everything happened so fast, and the infrastructure wasn't there because it grew like since Keep St. Pete Lit in the last 7 years, so it really, we were a small town, and and part of me thinks, I'm surprised it took so long. I mean, it's beautiful. We have the most beautiful beaches in the world, and our downtown is amazing with our waterfront parks. So hopefully that there are the right people in places that are making the moves, and there's lots of conversations happening. There's not just blinders.
Right.
There is
that's happened
private
everywhere that I've lived, from the Village to San Francisco. I lived in the Mission in San Francisco, which is now so super trendy. I mean, it was nobody lived there.
The tech people moved in, to get a hole in the wall is a couple $1,000s.
Yep. And during the dot-com boom, which was just before I left, they bought a building that had a dance cooperative and all these things. They evicted the people, renovated it, and then when the crash came, nobody could afford. The dance company couldn't come back. It was a devastation, and it breaks my heart what they did to San Francisco. It really breaks my heart.
Hopefully we can have leadership in. There's lots of good discussions. I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
But I also am realistic, so
unrelenting pressure.
We'll see. I mean, that's why our organization, Keep St. Pete Lit, I'm grateful that we're in the factory at St. Pete now, and most of our classes for kids and youth are in South St. Pete, and that we're working on programming to bring in, have a venue there for them. And, that's really where my heart is. And we do other things for writers too, but I'm really into the youth programming, especially kids that have challenges in their life. I relate to that, so.
And
I think this has been more of a conversation about, it's all about being a writer, all this stuff. Where do you live?
Because people don't talk about how do you afford to be a writer or an artist. How do you
afford to be a writer? Yeah. How do you afford to live where you live? I love the idea of finding a small town that have places under 50,000, because that's the budget. Like they're saying, there's an affordable housing project going in not far on down MLK, and they're like, it'll be affordable, only $235,000 to buy these townhouses. I go, anything over 200,000 is not affordable.
I still can't believe it's real. I mean, it's an effort to get there. It's 3 hours from the airport, from Clearwater to Bangor, and then an hour from Bangor when you're there. But it's still a dream to me. And it was meant to be, though. I think it was meant to be, because I really do want to help the community.
Yeah.
And one of the things I explored doing as an online job was being a contact tracer. But I took a course. But, it's very complicated to get the math right, to advise people what to do if they've been exposed. And then you are calling people with bad news, And I did some phone banking for Sarah Gideon, who was opposing Susan Collins in Maine in the Senate race, and for Biden-Harris. And it was very, very interesting. It was the hardest thing I did, actually, while I was in Maine, because a lot of people were very negative. Some people weren't, but there's the fuck off, But then half the yard signs in my neighborhood were Biden-Harris and half were Trump. But I have to say, I'm not sympathetic to white supremacists, but I am sympathetic to the forgotten white people of Maine who lost their jobs and have injuries from the mill, and whose parents are dying of cancer from the water. And there's a lot of drug and alcohol issues there. And it's the end of the Appalachian Trail, but it's like Appalachia in many ways,
There's this movie called Hillbilly that I watched.
Hillbilly Elegy, yeah.
Well, no, there's another one. It's just
another one.
Hillbilly. It's a documentary.
Oh, okay.
About a young woman who's a filmmaker that went and interviewed her family that lives in Kentucky. And they all voted for Trump, and she votes for Biden, and she wanted to understand why. And it was that kind of working poor that has felt that, they fell through the cracks and,
and there's a wonderful,
where do they fit?
There's a wonderful book that I wanted to really mention called Milltown by a woman named Carrie Arsenault. It's a memoir, expose, combination. Her family was French Canadian, and my mother was French Canadian from Canada down to Nebraska, so I relate to that.
Yeah.
She grew up in a mill town, and she began to notice after she was older and moved away, how many of the neighbors and friends had cancer. Yeah. And she started exploring that. And one of the shocking, it's gotten a lot of good coverage, like one of the 100 best books of the year, is the level of denial, because people had no other way to make a living than the mill, and they couldn't accept that their savior was also their nemesis. It's a wonderful book. There's no conclusion from it, but she's continuing. But there are mill towns. I mean, Maine, the license plate says vacation land, but the actual Mainers working in the paper mills and the clothing mills, they are the underbelly of Maine, and the rich people are on the coast, So it's like a microcosm of America in many ways.
I lived in a mill town in Canton, North Carolina. I was teaching pottery at Waynesville Community College.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Not far from there. And I lived there for 2 years. Like, my view was the paper mill. And it was interesting because I rented a house for $300 a month. It had a full basement. It didn't smell because we were so centered in the town. The smell went up and out.
Yeah.
But that was my view, was for 2 years was a paper mill. And
people in mill,
the water was nothing. It was like $20 a month to have water. Like, they had a lot of services, but the people next door, the young child, had birth defects issues. Like, there was, I still hope that doesn't come back to haunt me, that I lived in a mill town, in my health. That's all I could afford. I mean, I was teaching class pottery at a community college. It was my boss's house, and it was $300 a month for this 2-bedroom. Yeah.
Well, environmental racism is a subject that's only recently being talked about, and I'm very happy that Biden seems to really be putting that front and center, in his cabinet. The concerns about the people with the most health problems live near the factories and the incinerators and so on. So the people in Millinocket, they do mention the smell and the noise. They said, well, the downside, we got paid well, but
it smelled like a paper. Yeah.
But now, see, let's hear something good about technology for a change. Technology is meaning that people can work from home and they're not doing heavy industry, just like St. Pete is attracting. So Maine is attracting, in the town there are people, refugees from Boston, who want to raise their children in Millinocket, who can work on the internet, and it'll be a whole new chapter for Maine, because they have the environment, the gorgeous environment.
Yeah.
And the people are incredible. They're hardworking. They're straight. They're funny. They're ironic. They're very direct, which I like. There's no small talk.
My friend Mary Chris Bailey.
Yeah, I love that.
She's like my favorite person. One of my favorite people. She's probably watching this, to be a smart ass.
Yeah.
She just gets it. Like, that just real, like.
Yeah, but it's like, oh, this is, a place where people say what they mean, and that, like, they just, in a nice way, in a dry way, Like, one of the favorite adjectives, that's another thing, it's like a new language that I'm picking up, like an anthropologist. Wicked. When you say cheddar cheese, it's wicked good,
Yeah, I have a friend that says that a lot. Wicked. Yeah. And I'm like, wicked. Where are you from? Maybe she's from Maine. Yeah. So let me ask you a couple writers' questions.
Yeah.
What would you say is your, what advice would you give to your younger writer self? I always love asking this question.
Find a paying job that doesn't spill over into your private time, if you can, where it's, because if you have something that you love, like I started out as a scientist, you won't be able to compartmentalize if it's really, really important to you.
Yeah.
And you do need a paying job. you're not going to sell your first novel, almost certainly. And short stories, the market is difficult. It gives you incredible artistic freedom if you're not trying to make money and find out what the latest trend is. And, and there are many jobs that you can do that you would like, in teaching or library or working in a bookstore.
Yeah.
And take yourself seriously. I sent out work and I had people say, send us something else. And I didn't, it's a rejection. Follow up if people, and be careful who you partner with. Do not partner with a man who's very competitive and doesn't 100% support you. If he doesn't say, I'll take that box of books to the bookstore for you for the signing. Instead, he says, I'm busy, or I don't know, no one's going to show up. I mean, be really, really careful.
Yeah, I like that. That's good advice. We haven't gotten that yet.
And, I've been reading a lot of biographies, like Edna O'Brien has a wonderful biography, and even Joni Mitchell, people like that. If you look at their history, their first partners were men who were competitive and downplayed their talent. Joni Mitchell's, Edna O'Brien, he took her money from her first royalties and then in the divorce, tried to take her kids. I mean, it's really important. Or be alone,
Which is not a bad thing.
No. Joan Baez and I share a birthday, January 9th birthday. And recently someone interviewed her and she said, I realized after my divorce, I don't know if she was married once or twice, I meant to live alone.
Yeah.
She's fine with that.
Live alone and have lovers.
Exactly.
That's my theory.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying on. That's what I'm trying on.
And absolutely do not care about how clean your house is.
Oh my God. If you saw outside this beautiful little, I have nests of books.
Absolutely.
Piles of, and it's like, I don't want someone to come in and tell me to clean my space up
and I think it's a lot easier now because there's so many wonderful women writers now, and we don't even say women writers, we say writers who are women, right?
Yeah.
When I was trying to break in, I actually would sometimes just use my first initial because I was, afraid of being rejected if they knew I was a woman. I think, and the New York Times Book Review, it didn't have women, and it didn't have, so things are better in that regard. Take yourself seriously, follow up if you get encouragement, and try to find a group, even if it's 2 or 3 people who you can share your work with, that you're on the right wavelength with,
Yeah, that's important.
And I wouldn't say spend money on an MFA. I don't think that's important, unless you want to be a professor and teach. I don't think that's an important thing to do.
Yeah.
In terms of a schedule, I've never been really good at having a schedule, but one thing I've learned recently, it's called the Pomodoro method, actually. Maybe you've heard of it. You set your timer on it's to do with sections, for 25 minutes or 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you feel like, okay, if I can work for 45 minutes, I'm good. And then maybe you can do another one and another one. But it gives you a limit, so you don't feel like, if I don't work 6 hours, I'm a piece of shit,
Yeah.
No, actually, you know what? A page a day is a novel in a year.
Yeah, 365 pages. Yeah. That in our book club, I tell people that all the time. In our book club, we read books that are under 350 pages because that's what I pick.
Yeah,
you can do it in 6
page
hours.
A day. If you can't do a page a day, then do something else. Nobody cares. No, really, nobody cares if you're a writer.
Yeah.
If you want to be a writer but you don't want to write, hello.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right.
But the other thing I've learned, seems like it took me a long time to learn it. You don't have to have it written before you sit down. Sometimes I think if I don't have the great idea, just sit down and start. And I guess I'm a perfectionist and I don't like bad first drafts, but face it, the first draft is probably going to be bad or rough,
That's the editor in you.
Yeah. So 25, start with 25 minutes and start with just sitting down, even if you don't have an idea. And the other thing is just to be completely honest. Don't bullshit yourself.
Yeah.
Don't try to be writerly. I don't know who's I'm quoting, but if it sounds like you're writing, you're off. It shouldn't sound like writing.
Yeah.
I think maybe Elmer Leonard or somebody, but Stephen King. Don't be too writerly. I mean, the good writing, the Tolstoy, the Hemingway, that's been done. You know, just make it as true as you can and as simple as you can. And
I love it.
yeah, and you don't spend a lot of money on workshops or degrees, or unless that you want that to be your profession, you know.
Yeah.
But I think we've had enough novels about people in academia having affairs with each other in writing departments and not getting tenure, you know. I mean, you know, you know, the novels I like the Dreiser and Tolstoy, they have real people doing real jobs in the real world. You know, we've gotten away from that.
We've gotten very academic. Yeah.
So academic. And you and I share that in that we are outside of academia.
Yeah. Purposely. Purposely. I purposely created my own reality because I didn't all the other things didn't fit. Like, I don't know what I would do. I mean, I'm a poet. When I started Keep St. Pete Lit, I was a poet and a mother. And it's like, what do you do? Like, do I get a job at a doctor's office? Where do I work? Like, I don't want to be a waitress. Like, how do I live the life I want?
Well, you found the perfect solution, but do you have enough time for your own work?
I have to really carve it out. I have an office now, so that's going to be helpful. I definitely have to carve it out. And I read something recently that we think that we're being productive, but we're just consuming. We're consuming culture. We're consuming magazines. We're consuming online content. So we feel productive, but we're not actually being productive. We're just being consumers. So it's really that the pandemic's really, you know, helped me to kind of hone in, but it got busier again. And then I have to pull back again.
It's a fine line because
where I have to pull back.
Someone has to be a reader if we're writing.
Yeah.
You know, we can't expect other people to do all the reading, you know. I still buy real books. I still buy real hardcover.
Oh, I bought like 10 books this week and I almost took a picture and go, I have a problem.
But you know what? That's the one purchase I don't feel guilty about ever.
No. I mean, like anything else, if you're spending like, you know, 3 digits, you know, over $100 on, but I easily will like, I have a stipend for myself with each paycheck. Like, okay, this goes to this. And
yeah, I still get a thrill. I still love the hardcover books.
I get a thrill out of buying books. Like, it's such a, you know, it's such a gift. So, well, you've answered a lot of questions through conversation, and I love that we touched on like how to work as a writer. And I love that your spirit, like you're just constantly enthusiastic, you know, like it's and your purple hair.
Well, that's like, thank you, pandemic. I had decided about a year ago I was going to try going, you know, white or gray. I thought, okay, this is the perfect time. I'm saving a ton of money a month, and I feel fine. You know, so
Lovely.
Thank you.
I'm going to get off the phone and I'm going to like look up your main town, and I'm like, how much your house?
Okay. And I have my little piece.
So I would like to have you read a piece of your writing. Yes, please.
Okay. So during the past year, I've had many, many thoughts about our former about to be ex-president. But one thing I would come back to was Barron Trump. We never see pictures. We see him occasionally. He's very tall. What's going on with him? What must be going on with Barron Trump? So I wrote something, from the point of view of Barron Trump.
Oh, how I'm so excited about this.
Okay. It's called When. When I'm 18, I will leave. I will dye my hair black. I will throw away all my clothes. I will take the bus to nowhere. They won't find me. Maybe Alaska, maybe Mexico, Serbia, Scotland. I will change my name. He won't care. He never played with me. He hates children. The world hates him, and through him, me. I will start over. It can be done. Will I miss my mother? I don't know. I don't understand her. He disgusts her. I know he does, and yet it has been too long, too much. Who can I become? Will the stain be on me forever? It's not my fault. I wasn't given a choice. So many times I wished him dead. He's like an orange starfish. You can cut him in pieces and there will just be more of him. As I write, my hopes expand. I can imagine a street with a bakery and a cheese store. I shop there and I come home to a girl who smiles at me. She doesn't speak English. She doesn't know who I was. We eat an omelet that she cooks for me, and then I take our black dog for a short walk. I come home and sit under lamplight at my desk to study. I will be a teacher, perhaps. She's a dancer, and she loves me very much. She touches me in the right places. We have coffee in the mornings, and then I go to my classes. I don't look at the newspapers on the street corners on my way. I walk quickly past the newsstands. He's still on the front pages. Lawsuits, courtrooms. I don't want to know. Once I saw a big message on a front page. Barron's mother wants him to come home. But I did not respond. Every week I dye my hair black, black, black. I stoop a bit because I'm too tall. I wear fake eyeglasses with plain glass. I wear loose, ugly clothes. Only at night in bed with the girl am I completely free. This is my dream. I can make it happen. When I'm 18, in 4 years, I must be patient. The other dream, where I kill him, is not the right dream. Many people would love me, but I would be in prison and maybe never get out. It's not the right dream. I'll be patient. Mother, I'm sorry. I cannot save you. You'll forget about me. You must. If you love me, do not try to find me. This is my dream. I can make it happen.
Oh, I love that idea of thinking of what he wants. He is this kind of like,
I mean, every other child of a president has been photographed and shown and hugged. We never see anybody hugging him or smiling at him.
I love that he's with a dancer that doesn't speak English. I was so visual, like I could see it all. I could see him like Kurt Cobain, all with dyed hair.
I know. And we'll find out. Something will happen to him. We'll be following it. Yeah.
Barbara, thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.
Yes, thank you for like giving us insight into your life and your journey as a writer and a creative. And it's really good to kind of see, you know, for me especially, like, you know, just keep trying new things and seeing what works and
push yourself, challenge yourself. And then you won't even be nervous because you'll be trying to figure out, you know, how to walk down that icy hill in Maine. You can't worry about it.
Yeah. I know. Well, thank you everyone.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, practical challenges are the best, you know, like.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, things that have answers, you know, which paintbrush to use, you know, what typeface to use. It, especially right now when their problems are so huge. Doesn't mean you don't donate to groups that you believe in and phone bank, but practical.
It does feel like this existential dread.
Yes.
And yeah, I get it. It's funny, even going out in public and putting a mask back on and it was interesting being in another city because I haven't been anywhere since the pandemic.
Yeah.
And being I went to Orlando, but like going to Key West, that felt like I really went somewhere, and seeing other people wearing masks. And I'm like, oh, it really is everywhere. You know, like it's not just St. Pete, like everybody, whoa, like that was really like, and I still sometimes forget to put my mask on. I mean, I always remember, but I think I'm living out. I'm ready for it to be over. We all are.
Yes. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. And thank you for tuning in for episode 33 of Typewriter Talks. If you want to know more about Keep St. Pete Lit, you can go to keepstpetelit.org. We have writing classes, poetry open mics. We have a flash fiction night, book clubs, online classes, all kinds of things. And thank you again, Barbara, for being here. And tune in next time for episode 34. All right. And Happy New Year if you're watching.
Yes. Happy 2021 to everybody.
2020, happy holidays. And, you know, may next year be the best.